Testa, the community manager with ANA, and we are here at the 1804 Marquee exhibit, taking a look at some of this awesome collection here with Mark. Mark, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself.
I'm Mark Ferguson. I get my 50-year ANA membership award this week. And I've been collecting coins, and I've been a dealer in the business since I was a teenager. I've graded coins for PCGS. I've helped run price guides. I've volunteered with the ANA, and I've gotten into $1804 kind of by happenstance. My project started in the late 1980s when I acquired this 1804 dated silver dollar from the H.O. Granberg family. And Granberg is a former chairman of the board of the ANA from 1911 to 1914. And this is actually an altered date bust dollar. It's from 1800, but it was the first one that he bought in 1906, and little was known about the coins at that time. So he bought a real 1804 dollar, which is the Idler dollar, which the ANA now owns. Aubrey and Adeline Beebe gave the Idler dollar to the ANA in the 1990s. So along with that silver dollar that I acquired from the Granberg family, it was actually Granberg's son and the widow of his son. That was in the 1980s. I acquired this artwork that was done in 1887 in commemoration of the Dexter 1804 dollar. And this other piece over on this side came along with it, and I wondered, what do I have there? So that began my research in 1989, and it unfolded into a 300-page book that I published about 10 years ago, and then it developed into this big collection. Okay, this is a photograph of the Dexter 1804 dollar, one of 15 known. This one is famous because it's got a tiny D that's stamped into a cloud on the reverse. We're still not sure who put the D there, but it likely is not James Dexter. It was probably Dunham, which was another collector who owned the coin in later years. So subsequently, I acquired 2 of 4 known 1884 auction catalogs where that coin was discovered. One of these auction catalogs is in a museum in Vienna. Another collector here in the U.S. has one of them, and I've got the other 2. So this exhibit shows the front cover, and it shows the inside lot listing for the coin. Before the 1884 auction, there were pictures that were extensively circulated in America, and I'm quoting from Ed Frossard, an early dealer and publisher in coins. So even this photograph is rare. 2 dealers who were brothers from Philadelphia actually purchased the 1804 dollar out of the Adolf whale sale in Germany in 1884, but numismatists were skeptical, and in 1962, famous numismatists Eric Newman and Ken Brissett wrote the fantastic 1804, and they wrote a chapter saying the coin was actually planted in the German auction in 1884 to cover up from the Chapman Brothers getting it from the U.S. Mint. Well, in 2013, I discovered some letters at the American Numismatic Society that proved Newman and Brissett wrong. And these letters are over a 5-month period. And the first one, again, these are copies of the letters. The real copies are at ANS, American Numismatic Society in New York. And the Chapmans kept 4 letterpress copybooks where they would put their stationery on top of a piece of onion skin paper so the ink would transfer and make an exact copy of their letter. So the letters here go over a 5-month period, And the first one shows where the Chapmans are bidding on several coins, and they won several coins in the auction. And for their auctions, they used to send out the coins and then wait for the money to show up. That's what they expected Adolf Whale, the German dealer, to do, but he wanted the money first, and they were reluctant to send the money without seeing the coin. So they arrived at a solution by having an agent receive both the money and the coin and then disperse them accordingly. So the Chapman Brothers legitimately purchased the dollar in that 1884 auction. We still don't know how the coin got to Germany. Some numismatists believe that famous collector Jules Fonrabert, who lived from 1831 to 1879, owned the 1804 dollar, and it would have been a special coin to him. It was not included in his auction, but some of us think he liked the coin and kept it back and didn't auction it. This could be totally wrong, but that's our guess. So the unanswered question is, how did the coin get to Germany? And I still want to find that out. So the following year, 1885, in May, the Chapman Brothers had their own auction, and they called it the Chapman Collection. And so the coin was in their auction, which got extensive publicity. And Dexter had an agent, J.W. Scott, who dealt in coins and stamps. And he represented Dexter at the auction in 1885 and purchased the coin for a record price of $1,000. And there's a letter that talks about the drama in the auction room. And as bidding progressed, it got up to $990. And they said, we won't take less than another $10. And Scott bid the extra $10, making it a record sale of $1,000. That's unlike 1989 when the coin sold for $990,000. People thought that the buyer at that time should have thrown in an extra 10 grand to make it the first $1 million coin, but that didn't happen. James Dexter, who lived from 1836 to 1899, was considered Colorado's first millionaire. He had a big bank that was at 16th and Arapahoe Streets in Denver. It's torn down now. There's a big high-rise there. But he was into ranching and resorts and other real estate. So in the crash of 1893, he didn't lose everything. So his mansion was torn down in Denver, but the History Colorado, which used to be the Colorado Historical Society, owns a cabin that he had in Leadville, and it's plain on the outside, but ostentatious on the inside, and that's how Dexter lived. Dexter is known mostly for owning the 1804 dollar, and after he died, his collection was sold privately, so there's no auction catalog that documents his collection. So he had little catalog books that listed his collection, and nice handwriting, and he also had an artist make drawings of some of his coins, and he owned some extremely important coins. There was a drawing of his 1804 dollar done in pen and ink. It said he paid $1,050, but really the extra $50 went to J.W. Scott as a commission. Some of the gold coins he had, my favorite is the 1798 Small Eagle $5 piece. It says in Dexter's notebook that there were 4 known in his day. Today there's 6 or 7 known, and even some gold specialists have never even seen one. So after Dexter purchased the 1804 dollar, he corresponded with some coin dealers and numismatists from the East Coast. And a couple of them wrote letters and said that what he bought was a restrike, because the dies were found and 1804 dollars were restruck many years later after the original striking, which I'll get into soon. So after Dexter spent $1,000 on this coin, which was like an annual income for an average worker in America, these letters said the restrikes were worth about $25. So I would say he was a little bit upset by this. So in 1886, about a year after he bought the coin, he sued the Chapman Brothers in Philadelphia, and he hired a lawyer, Thomas DeWitt Cuyler, and so they were building their case, and it was coming down to the trial date, which I think was on Valentine's Day in 1886, and 1887. And a telegram was sent to Dexter from his lawyer, and it basically said, if we are to try the case, you have to come on at once to Philadelphia. And he said, we have coin dealers on our side, and the Chapman Brothers have U.S. Mint officials on their side. He said, we don't think we have a very good case. And he said, instead, wouldn't it be good to take some certificates of genuineness, as they called them, from the mint officials and settle the case with these certificates? So Dexter wrote back to his lawyer and said, yes, let's settle it with the certificates. So he obtained the certificates of genuineness signed by 4 mint officials in 1887, and that made him happier. He was still upset that he had to sue the Chapman Brothers. So in my research over the past 35 years, I've put together a collection of mostly photocopies of old letters and documents. Most of these documents are in museums or libraries, but they're here for people to look at this convention. So Dexter took it a step further. He was a collector of many things, among them fine art. So in 1887, he commissioned artist Charles Stoll to commemorate his 1804 dollar in this work of art. So that's the piece that I acquired with the first altered 1804 dollar that I obtained from the Granberg family. But that altered coin came in this red box, and I am confident that the red box is the same red box that's in the painting. The artist put a little lock in the painting to show that it held an object of value. And so along with that, there was kind of a package of things that I got, a packet of papers, and there was a newspaper article from an 1883 newspaper that word for word had this story in it. And then I discovered that newspaper article came from this book, The Current Gold and Silver Coins of All Nations by Ivan C. Michaels. And again, the text in his book is the same as what's on the art, word for word. So it basically says that the last year silver dollars were coined was 1804, and 19,570 coins were silver dollars were coined in that year, but none are known. Conventional thinking is they were dated 1803. But the story goes on to tell about there was a famous episode in history where on October 31st, 1803, the SS Philadelphia ran aground in the Tripoli harbor, and over 300 American officers and crew of the Philadelphia were captured and held prisoners for about 19 months in Tripoli. So in June of 1805, there was a $60,000 ransom that was paid to free the American hostages, or prisoners, I should say. And this story says that those 1804 dollars were part of that ransom payment. Well, I've found no evidence that that's true. I've tried to find out what the ransom consists of, and so far I've come up short. I haven't found an answer. So whether that part of it is true or not, we don't know, but it is true that we had the prisoners held in Tripoli. So the other piece of art, when I obtained this, I wondered, what does this represent? And in my research, I was able to discover that these three documents are the certificates of genuineness that Dexter received from the U.S. Mint officials in settlement of his case. These two are the 1885 auction catalog from when Dexter bought the coin from the Chapman auction. This document is a letter from the Chapman Brothers talking a little bit about the auction and the bids that came in. And this letter, the text of which is placed here, it's a letter from J.W. Scott, his agent, talking about how the auction went and how he executed the bids and so forth. So this ties in that whole story about how Dexter bought the coin. Fast forward to 1989, here in Chicago, the coin came up for auction. That's the Dexter 1804 dollar. And it again sold for a world record price of $990,000. Several people criticized the buyer and thought he should throw in another $10,000 to make it the first $1 million coin. And it's so reminiscent of the 1885 sale that sold for, it was up to $990, and the auctioneer wanted $10 to make it the first $1,000 coin. Here it could have been the first $1 million coin, but at least it was the first $1 million level coin. And for months there was excitement in the coin hobby about that sale. It was really exciting. I was at the auction, and it was exciting for months. So again, one distinctive part of the Dexter dollar is it's got a little D stamped in the reverse. I think we talked about that at the beginning. We still don't know who punched that in, but some people think it's William Forrester Dunham, who owned the coin later on. Coin World wrote an article about that, and Dunham was known to stamp some of his tokens and other collectibles with a D. So it almost looks like Dunham did it, not Dexter. So we go on to auction catalogs after that sale. Well, actually, we back up to 1903. After Dexter died in 1899, his son-in-law had custody of the coin in his collection. So he sold the coin, the 1804 dollar, in a private transaction to an H.G. Brown from the Seattle area. Brown had quite a big collection that he wanted to exhibit, and I think he had a gambling house in Washington or Oregon, and he closed that up, and I don't know if he lost money or what, but he wanted to go down to the Panama Canal and start a business down there. So he put the coin up for auction the year later in 1904, and that's when Dunham bought it, William Forrester Dunham. And he was also a high-ranking official in the ANA. I think he was chairman who turned over the chairmanship position to Granberg in 1911. That's H.O. Granberg. So B. Max Mail, the famous dealer from Fort Worth, Texas, cataloged the sale. He actually bought Dunham's collection, and he made an elaborate catalog, which is well known. They're fairly common. He had a prospectus that he sent out advertising the catalog and the sale. And the catalog came in a box through the mail. And there were several pages of description about the coin. As the years went on, the descriptions in auction catalogs got bigger and bigger. Today, they're typically many, many pages long in current auction catalogs. This catalog is a deluxe copy of the Dunham sale. It's leather bound, and it's got the name of Charles M. Williams embossed on the front. He's the buyer of the Dexter dollar from the Dunham sale. And this deluxe copy, which is unique because it's got Charles M. Williams' name embossed on it. It's got a photographic plate bound in of the Dexter 1804 dollar, of the 1822 $5 gold piece. There's 3 known, 2 are in the Smithsonian. There's only 1 collectible. And then in the back, there's a bound-in photograph of a $50 gold piece. So the coin sold for $4,250 in this auction. Some of the other auction catalogs, let's see, it went from Charles M. Williams. His collection was sold privately, and famous dealer Abe Kossoff, who had a lot to do with the grading standards for the ANA grading guide, and a partner, Saul Kaplan, they bought Charles Williams' collection intact privately, and they placed the 1804 dollar, they sold it to Harold Bearford. So he owned it, and I believe that was sold again privately, went through a few collector dealers, and that's when it came up for auction 89, which I just showed, where the coin sold for $990,000. And then it's been through a few other auctions. 1994, it was auctioned by Superior Galleries, again with Stax from New York in 2000. And that's where Brent Pogue, famous collector Brent Pogue, bought it. And he owned the coin for several years. Unfortunately, Brent passed away early at age 54, and his collection was auctioned. And then it's passed through several hands since that time. So back in 2013, when I discovered that the Chapmans legitimately purchased the coin out of the 1884 auction, it blew a hole in the Newman Brissett story saying it was planted. So Coin World wrote a big story about that. And then in 2014, I published a 300-page book about the Dexter dollar. Okay, this is part 2 of the exhibit. This is more on 1804 dollars themselves. There's 15 known, and curiously, I'll get to this in a moment, but the first ones were struck in 1834, even though they're dated 1804. So famous numismatist Eric Newman wrote an article in the 1990 Numismatist. I forgot what month, I think it's maybe October. And he talked about the earliest known illustration of an 1804 dollar, and that was in this journal from Germany in 1832. So I bought this out of an auction. This was Eric's copy, and subsequently I found another copy in Germany. So we've got the cover displayed and the page that illustrates the 1804 dollar, again from 1832. There's no history known how they came up with this, but curiously, the reverse of the 1804 dollar in this drawing shows a small eagle coin, where the 1804 dollars known today are the heraldic eagle, or large eagle with spread wings. The first collector to obtain an 1804 dollar went to the mint on May 9th, 1843, and traded some coins to the mint for their collection that they didn't have. But prior to that, in 1842, this book, A Manual of Gold and Silver Coins of All Nations, was written by 2 curators or officials of the U.S. Mint, Jacob Eckfield and William Dubois, and there was a picture of an 1804 dated silver dollar. And Stickney thought, well, that's special. I need that for my collection to keep a chronological date collection going. He didn't know anything about the background of these, how rare they were, but in May of 1843, he was able to obtain one. So he left the mint with an $1804 in his hand. So Stickney died in, well, I'm not sure the year, but his coins were auctioned in 1907 by the Chapman Brothers. I have 3 of his auction catalogs showing the description of the $1804. The coin realized $3,600 in that sale. The 4250 was a subsequent sale in the 1900s, or the mid-1900s, let's say. So here's a plate from the Stickney auction, and my collection has a glass negative of the $1804 used for that plate. So now this is where it gets really interesting. In 1962, Newman and Brissett, after a few years of research with a couple of research assistants, came out with their book, The Fantastic $1804. So it was being printed in Racine, Wisconsin at Whitman Publishing in 1962 during the American Numismatic Association, which was in Detroit. So they were going to truck over some of the books and release advance copies at the convention. Well, at the same time, dealer David Spink came from London and gave a talk about the $1804, but more specifically, the King of Siam presentation proof set. And Newman and Brissett debunked that proof set, and they wrote in their book a chapter called The Diplomatic Gift Delusion. So they were really taken aback by this talk and the discovery of this proof set. So at the end of the talk, Ken Brissett, co-author, ran to a phone, he called Whitman Publishing, and he said, "Stop the presses." So they stopped the presses, and they had to rewrite the book because that set turned up. I'll get to more of that in a moment. Tying this all together, the reason that $1804 were struck with that date is they were really struck in 1834 and possibly a couple more in 1835. But here's a copy of a letter which is now in the National Archives in Philadelphia. Some people are familiar with the text, but other than in my book, I've never seen a copy of the actual letter. I've got it photographed in my book, but it's ordering 2 diplomatic gift sets to give to the King of Siam and the Sultan of Muscat in the mid-1830s as gifts for trade treaties that were negotiated. So there were other objects that they gave them, but they figured a set of coins would be appropriate. So these sets were made up at the mint, and this letter orders leather cases that were decorative and embossed with the eagle. And so all 11 coins are dated 1834 except the silver dollar and the $10 gold piece. So the mint officials would have looked back at the last year that silver dollars and $10 gold pieces were coined, and it was 1804. So none existed because they were probably dated 1803 in the case of the silver dollar. So they made new dies dated 1804 in the year 1834, and then they struck these coins. So back to the Stop the Presses episode. After the presses were stopped, Ken Brissett told me that about 24 page proofs were bound like the original book, and about 24 were saved, and then they rewrote the chapter and reissued the book. But I've got 3 of those 24 copies that were saved, so I've got them displayed here so people can compare the original text from the first version to the corrected version. And Eric Newman and Ken Brissett signed most of these books, and they say bound page proofs ready for correction, and correct them we did. So again, in the table of contents, the original version said the diplomatic gift delusion. They changed it to the diplomatic gift background. And then these show the original version and the corrected version of that whole chapter. So the final case here is 1804 silver dollars are known in society. Here's an illustration of somebody who's got a tattoo of an 1804 dollar. Matlock, the television star, in his series he asked for high prices, and he asked one client for a fee of an 1804 silver dollar, a 1936 Gobrecht dollar, and a set of seated Liberty dollars through 1851. So whoever was the writer of that show knew something about coins. There's a Ezra Brooks whiskey decanter that was made of an 1804 dollar. And curiously, there are 15 known now. The last one to turn up was the King of Siam set in 1962. And this box, this is a copy of the box, it said only 14 are now in existence. So that was curious, and this is just kind of a brick, as I call it, of a half a dozen copies of the fantastic 1804 dollar that are packaged up for distribution to sellers. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for showing us your incredible display here. I feel like I learned so much. It's been awesome to get to know you and to look at all your incredible collection.
Well, this has been a fun project. It's been 35 years since I started the project and have been doing my research. The title of my exhibit is Having Fun with the King of American Coins, the Dollar of 1804, and I truly am having fun. I want to continue my research and keep building the collection. The big unanswered question is, how did the Dexter dollar get to Germany? And if anybody wants to know, or if anybody has an answer, please call me and help me out with some clues. And if you'd like to know anything about 1804 dollars and discuss them, feel free to track me down. I have fun discussing them.
Awesome, thanks.